Starting fresh today. Let's see this. All right, we are, what's today's date? June 4th, meaning we just closed last month's closure, which is obviously still bearish, right? We're still aiming for a previous low because this could still give us some type of reaction to the downside. Something that I'm noticing is we also have a potential turbulence point in terms of maybe a 3-day. Down here, yeah, you could see a potential turbulence point anywhere inside of here. Right, so this is obviously a key area to look into after we take out liquidity, but that's obviously more of a long-term thing, a couple weeks at least. But honestly, after Tuesday, everything started getting very sloppy as we go from our monthly to our weekly. Right, looking at how potentially we're going to close today, looks like it could start giving us upside momentum. Sorry, let's see. Right here. Right, we just taken liquidity out a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Right, and off the bat, as we start zooming in, right now, that even though we pretty much considered this right here to be the initiation of the leg pullback, here in terms of high-low retracement, solidified low, because we took out our preliminary structure, right? We came back after the reaction, reacted from an inefficiency. Right, and we were pretty much here, I believe, on Tuesday. Right, I believe we were here, wasn't the second? No, Tuesday was the first. Right, so I believe we were discussing the possibility of a continuation via a turbulence point because, right, we could have seen this entire push up to be a liquidity grab, and we could have acknowledged this preliminary structure break as this being the solidified high of our high-low retracement. But unfortunately, right, because we broke through our turbulence point, no reaction, we now are considered in a bullish market because this is now seen as unwillingness. Right, but I could not judge this until this was broken. Right, so because we took out our turbulence point, and even though we gave a reaction, I believe we said we would look anywhere here in this relative area, even though we got a reaction to the downside, now acknowledging our preliminary structure, right, pretty much the final leg to the upside, even though we had strong momentum, our structure was intact. Right, as you can see here, 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 structure maintained itself to the upside, right? And now that we took out this structure point, we are now still considered bullish, but the issue now, right, is that we're still inside of our overall structural range, even though we have momentum to the upside, right? Who's to say this is not a mitigation, right? So back to zooming out, right? What do we see? A fulfillment right, of our inefficiency. The fulfillment of our inefficiency, right, could now make this a potential solidified high only if we take this out. Right, so for the meantime, we are bullish, right? Even though we had strong momentum from news, we are currently reacting, right, from a potential inefficiency. We zoom in closer, momentum is definitely to the downside currently in terms of a scalp perspective, right? So if we are to take this low, that is my bullish invalidation, right? This is pretty much the final mitigation before we gave a move to the upside. The final time we broke any type of structural low before we went to the upside. And so this structural range in terms of a minor intraday is still intact, right? But like I said, there's momentum here, even though it's a news catalyst, right? If the momentum breaks structure, then I will switch my bias. But for now, even though I am considered bullish, that does not mean I want to buy. Just for the simple reason, right, that as a whole, I still don't have a legitimate reason as to why I should be buying. Right, our final leg to the downside is still there. The daily inefficiency is in play, right? So the bias is still intact in terms of a swing bias. But, right, like I said, the issue, right, is that our minor intraday is still bearish. I mean, bullish, I'm sorry. Right, so we'll see how this reaction plays out. I probably won't trade Monday. I didn't even trade this week, to be honest. Once we go to EU, you'll see. Right, outside of this, which is from last week, I believe. Yes, it was from last week. Let's see this. Right, in terms of EU, right, today would have been a decent move. I didn't trade today, unfortunately. Right, yesterday I didn't want to sell EURUSD, so I just stayed away. Right here, the bottom had already occurred, so catching an order flow continuation wasn't necessarily too enlightening for me, just because, right, I care more for catching my overall trade, which was already here, and I didn't see a reason to potentially take volume here, especially because from a structural perspective, right, our reaction didn't take our high, and then we took preliminary structural levels. So it's just either a break even or a potential liquidity grab here, and we go higher. That was pretty much my thought process at the time, but unfortunately the break even is there. But now correlating our bias from DXY to EU. All right, whoever that is, can you? Okay, never mind. Go muted. Right, low, high, high. Right. The reason why I'm not acknowledging this as a high is because we didn't take out any type of structural low until here. So solidified low, solidified high. Right, leg is still bullish, but right, as we are starting to, make this solidified low, right, now this is a solidified higher low because we took preliminary structure, and this is unwillingness and a break of structure, right? So on EU, the picture is kind of more showing us that we want to take that bearish direction, right? So I'm going to highlight my swing. Highlight my swing, right? Looking at pretty much what happened since Tuesday, Friday, Thursday, Tuesday, right? We made a solidified low, right? Because we took structure out. But now this was an issue, right? Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. I believe we talked about this. Was this a very weird mitigation? Even though I know some of you caught this, this wouldn't have been my preferred type of scenario, especially because in terms of a overall structural point of view, this is still considered picking a high, right? Because our swing is bullish. But from an intraday basis, you can justify this type of reversal based on the break of structure, right? But it is considered picking a high in terms of an overall directional POV. But you know, it is what it is, right? So immediately after this mitigation was in play, broke structure, solidified high, right? So now this is unwillingness based on that, right? So the issue here now, right, for me is that we are continuing the break of structure and there is unwillingness, right? So even if I'm still considered bullish, it's a lot harder to try to find a position because you are still, because you're trying to essentially mix the overall direction with the medium-term direction, right? So the timing could probably be off. And as you can see, right, high-low retracement, right, happened very late in session, right? And there is no clear-cut mitigation, so it's just like, you know, it's not something I'm gonna force a trade out of. So just stay away from that. And sloppy EU, yes, indeed, right, very sloppy. If you're trading intraday, I would say it's, you know, cheese for you, but in terms of an overall direction, a bit tougher. But yeah, definitely catching a lot. There's a lot of London scenarios, whether it was here, right, even here today. Right, so pretty much continuing the entire bias, right? We are still technically bearish in terms of a major minor intraday, right? Especially currently because look at where we're reacting from. Right, something I was noting was that there was still an H4 wick. So if I was to trade today, right, it's a lot harder for me to try to take any type of long position when I know that this is still here, right? Also, I believe it's NFP today. Right, and so the scenario at the time of day when the news came in play wasn't the best for me, in my opinion. As you can see, I know Luis caught this. Very nice scenario, right? Looking at liquidity. Right, I'm sorry, not there. Right, final leg to the downside, right? But because we break preliminary structure after taking liquidity, that is a liquidity grab. And I'm pretty sure he caught it off of that. Right, very nice trade. Very nice trade. Unfortunately, not inside of my parameter. Either way, right, even if you don't catch the mitigation, there's still the acknowledgement that this mitigation occurs and creates a new structural high, right? Because as you can see, we came back, I believe it's M2. Yeah, as you can see, low, high, new micro structural range, and the mitigation in play. Right, pretty much perfect entry, right? But you know, unfortunately, I didn't trade today. Either way, very nice scenario in terms of liquidity grabs, understanding order flow, right? You have the liquidity grab in play, mitigation makes a narrative, right? Now that you have the micro structural range inside of even though it's still inside of the range, but it's considered valid because of the narrative in play, the liquidity grab plus the mitigation in play, meaning order flow is supporting your bias, right? And even though it is kind of considered picking a bottom, right, you will see these types of reversals during overlap. But yeah. even though this is still bullish, right? I think we'll still at least get another pullback. I'm not necessarily too concerned, especially if we do come back to reach up here and then come lower. Right, that will pretty much make me be very patient for one, because even though the momentum is in play, I need to know how the momentum is coming down here. Right, with that, then order flow continuation, any type of liquidity grab, structural break in terms of a scalp time frame, and then that's when you can take it to the moon. Right, but the bias is still intact. Right, you know, we've been through this before, especially my older members. You guys know we've been through this. Especially back in like April of last year, right when we first opened, right? The bias has always been intact, right? Even when we were in sloppy conditions, the bias was still intact. Even when we're in sloppy conditions, the bias is still intact, right? So it's the same thing here, unless we get a legitimate reason to want to take this lower. Because obviously if we take this low out, oh, we're looking at a massive swing to the downside. That doesn't make sense for me in terms of a narrative perspective, especially when you're looking at momentum, right? Right, we're already inside of a discount. Right? So if the discount reaction makes sense, right? Now in terms of momentum, volume, time of day, potential closures, right? Because this week is going to close out pretty sloppy in my opinion. Right, very ugly. So honestly, probably by Wednesday we'll for sure know the direction. But it's still bullish in my eyes until we break that H4 leg. Excuse me, that H4 leg. Next, GU, don't even want to talk about this, to be honest. If you thought EU was sloppy, this was sloppier. Right, because right, remember I didn't want to consider this reaccumulation just yet. Maybe, especially big shit show, right? Especially because there's a potential inefficiency fill wake down here. I don't want to consider this a reaccumulation. I don't even want to consider it a distribution. This just looks like an awfully sloppy range, in my opinion. As we're going into our daily, right, you can tell, right, as we're zooming in, we have low, high, low, potential liquidity grab based on preliminary structure break, bearish order flow, liquidity grab to the upside, right, continuation, liquidity grab. So now this is very sloppy, no man's land per se, right? Especially after this liquidity grab. It's just not something I want to really touch right now. But in terms of an overall perspective, right, if it was yesterday, if this was yesterday, I would easily say, right, that we have a bearish liquidity grab, a continuation, and another potential continuation. But thanks to news today, right, we've already broken through the final potential mitigation point there, right? So realistically, we could be looking at a bullish continuation, right? If this was yesterday, I would be anticipating a continuation based on either structure or this POI. But thanks to news, right, we now have that in play, especially strong momentum. So if we're looking at obviously liquidity here, I'm looking at liquidity here, right? Especially because this liquidity took previous liquidity, right? We now have a potential major liquidity grab in terms of taking out previous lows and reacting immediately. And not only that, breaking obviously the potential structure here. So something to note is this is not disruption. This is not disruption. I've seen that mistake in a couple of people's charts. That is not disruption. Even though you broke the last potential mitigation point, that's honestly an internal structure break. That's not a disruption. An order flow disruption is a mitigated point that is then taken out, right? Because that creates the narrative that the order flow is converted, and you can now correlate that with a potential structure shift and then find the discount continuation, right? So it's a completely different thing. Either way, right? Nothing, this did not mitigate anything, right? But we still have potential inefficiency, SCs, a turbulence point, right? So I am considered bullish, especially because I like the momentum in play, right? So even though the momentum was nice here, right, it was pretty much taken out by the fact that we have more momentum here, right? So we have a potential overall liquidity grab. Right, I'm hoping this doesn't happen anytime soon. I'm hoping we close anywhere up here, just so we can have a decent structure, a decent closure, right? Because now the way that I'm seeing this, especially on a 3-day, right, in 5 hours, this is a very bullish closure, right? Very bullish closure after taking liquidity, right? And we're also noting that it's taken so long to give us a bearish reaction just for it to then come right back up. So effort is saying one thing, and it's aligning with the liquidity grab in play, and it's aligning with the momentum that we discussed. So yeah, I'm bullish. No need to complicate that. But yes, let's see. AU I did not touch this week actually at all. We actually did come back. Oh, that's actually very nice. Did anybody trade this here? I've not been looking at this at all. Right, you could say leg is bearish, right? But right, our final potential mitigation point to the continuation, right, was tapped and then taken out, causing an overall disruption, right? And as you can see, we actually reacted from here today. That's actually very nice. Didn't see that. Yeah, that's actually very nice. But yeah, this is also bullish here now, for sure. 100% bullish here. Especially strong reaction, right? Overall disruption. We have a potential range here where we have a liquidity grab and continuation. So this is already printing out a nice narrative to the upside. Right, so best case, I don't think we'll reach down here. That isn't realistic to me. But I do think we'll do some sloppy stuff and then a new structural range, and then that's your opportunity. That's more so what I would see happening. That makes more sense, especially because of the strong momentum. But yeah, you could see we have taken out the final potential mitigation point, right? And let's actually zoom in and see if we wanted to react somewhere. No, not really. Sorry guys, somebody walked in. Sorry about that. That is a disruption, Geo, for sure. That's a disruption right there. Where? What are you talking about? Talking about GU? AU. Disruption where? Yeah. I see. Yeah, I see. I agree. But yeah, definitely. If anything, if you want to see this from an overall perspective, right? Accumulation in terms of a schematic 2, right? And we have a potential reaccumulation, but I don't want to call it reaccumulation just because the cause, which is the accumulation, didn't necessarily give us a strong move, but it did give us a clue in terms of showing its hand, breaking structure, disruption, right? And now we had liquidity's taken, the narrative is built, the bias is set, so now it's just about finding the opportunity. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much my lecture for today. Unless you guys have some questions. Can be a reaccumulation April 12th to now. Let's see. Let me zoom out. Actually, I don't like this time frame. No, yeah, I literally just said. I literally just said I don't want to call it that. But if anything, this kind of reminds me of something. Let me see if I could find it. Yeah, bro, I know what I literally just said. I don't want to call it a reaccumulation, bro. Please. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Looks like something I've seen before. I don't recall. I don't remember where I see that from, but this looks very familiar. Looks very familiar. I would consider this accumulation when I consider this reaccumulation. I mean, especially if you're looking at where's the picture? All right, especially if we're trying to consider it a reaccumulation. I'm sorry. I always consider distance. Right, distance, 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 distance. Whereas here, where is this at? Distance, distance. You see what I mean? And usually the cause of the increase or decrease in distance is that it's just a bigger play, whether it's a minor intraday in a swing or a major intraday in a position, right? But I always like to correlate them based on time and distance. Yep, definitely. The one that we pointed out here. Yep. The thing that's giving it away for me is the momentum. Now, I don't care if it's news. If you notice with news, two things can happen. Whether one, you have a major impulse and it stays and it doesn't retract, or you have a major impulse and it automatically reacts on the other side. And usually, right, in my opinion, if the momentum stays and it doesn't fully clear it out off the bat, right, unless structure doesn't align with it, right, that usually gives away the bias, which is why I'm saying if we break this here, then the bias is now solidified, in my opinion, which is right here. See what I mean? So if we start retracting, retracing, right, either the character is going to shift or we get a continuation. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, but you know, I just want to be as conservative as possible, especially when I'm on the Zooms. I always want to stay as conservative as I can be. But yeah, other than that, do you guys have any questions? Here we go. I don't think I'll ever touch this again, to be honest. What was it we talked about last week? No, this isn't the one. Let me see. Yeah, this is gone. This is gone. Looking at an intraday, obviously minor intraday bullishness. This is done. Unless we obviously take that out, this is going to continue. No, it doesn't matter to me. Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. Right, short-term bullishness. However, right, this kind of doesn't make sense to me. All right, looking at this from momentum, naturally, right, if you're looking at EU, GU, if you're looking at that, if this is bullish, then that means Euro and GBP are strong, meaning this should be rocketing. Right, so that's a bit of a disparity there. Something to note. Right, but this isn't flying. Right, so either this is a trap or this is about to just melt from the sky like this. But I mean, looking at, let's actually look at our daily. I haven't looked at the daily on here. Yeah, you see, like that daily closure could be a trap. Who knows? Right, especially if we're looking at momentum. Right, it's a liquidity grab potentially here if we take that range that we just noticed. Oh, actually would consolidate. I read that wrong, I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, in terms of looking at this from a perspective of continuation, this is still going lower. But, right, let's look at this here. Reaction, right, deep retracement, continuation. I see that as a type of disruption. So unless this breaks, this can continue higher. No, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I completely chopped that up. You're right. But yeah, this is looking a bit weird just because we reacted. Gave a disruption, potential continuation in play. And as you can see, this could easily continue higher. And if this continues higher, then we're looking at our daily, you know, that looks potentially bullish. See what I mean? This even gives 5-6 pips. It's going to be very bullish. But yeah, this is sloppy. Even the weekly. Yeah. You see, weekly would, if I'm looking at the weekly, I'm thinking bearish. If I'm looking at the minor intraday, the major intraday, I'm thinking bearish. Right? Especially because we're reacting from H1 efficiency. Right? But if we go to the daily, that's not the most appealing in terms of a bearish direction. You see what I mean? It's very sloppy. But if I had to put my money on it, I'd definitely would be more bearish. All right, as long as this mitigation is in play, even though the momentum is low, right? This could easily give us another candle like this. Give us the change of character and the momentum and the continuation. Right? That's usually how false flags will play out, in my opinion. But yeah, other than that, done for today. This one honestly looks the most appealing if it gives you a good retracement. Yeah, definitely. Definitely fully bullish on this. Definitely coming up here. I could be wrong. For all I know, this could react and continue lower, but I doubt that. Doubt that. But yeah, do you guys have any questions, or are we good here? EU daily. Yeah, this just fits the that fits the DXY narrative. Essentially, fits the DXY narrative. But yeah, I'm still bullish. I have no reason to be bearish just yet. In terms of overall direction, now the only issue, right, like we said, is this. But still bullish. Still bullish. But yeah, I'll see you guys on Tuesday.